What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome back for some more Fire Emblem Heroes, and today I'm going to be going over the weapon refines that we have got in this month's update for Micaiah, Fae, Valter, and Elise, and I'm going to be giving you guys my analysis on these weapon refines as well as builds, so I hope you guys do enjoy, and with that said, let us begin. Fae is one of the original dragons that a lot of people built up back in the time when the game was pretty new, and she did get a pretty good weapon refine in my opinion. So the primary effect of Eternal Breath makes her a pretty good buff bot, so she can basically buff herself and allies without needing to fulfill any kind of strict condition. She just needs an ally to be within 2 spaces of her, and if that condition is fulfilled, which is really easy to do, then she buffs herself and the allies within 2 spaces for +5 to all of their stats. So keep in mind this is visible buff, so it can be panicked and it can be ignored by lull skills. Her weapon refine has pretty good synergy with the self-buffing of the primary condition, so this is almost always going to be active. So if a bonus is active on Fae, then she inflicts -4 attack and resistance debuff on the foe, and she also gets +1 special cooldown charge per foe's attack. So this special acceleration is pretty reminiscent of stuff like Huge Fan Plus or Owain's Mistletoe effect. So she's able to retaliate back with like a 2-turn special instantly, for example, with this kind of effect, which is really amazing for a tank unit like her. So she's pretty much a hybrid of a tank and a support unit. Now, the fact that she gives visible buffs can be annoying at times because Panic Manner, Panic Ploy, and Panic S'more are common things, so they will just ruin all of those buffs. And lull skills are also pretty common in the metagame, which just ignore any kind of visible buffs. So you will have to watch out for that, but keep in mind her weapon can even activate on any kind of positive status effect. For example, if she's getting ground orders from another unit, then she will still have her weapon refine active. It just needs to be any kind of positive bonus effect. So in my opinion, this is a pretty nice weapon refine, which does make her combat a bit better, gives her more power, and also makes her bulky basically with that refine effect, and can also allow her to be a supportive unit basically with that buffing from her primary condition. The buffing which you could do with the primary condition of the weapon is much better than ASTRAM's Mercurius or even male and female Robin's weapon refine, which just goes to show you how far we have come. If this kind of primary condition was giving her and the allies in combat buffs, that would have been absolutely busted. So visible buffs just means that you will have to deal with panic and lull skills, but still a pretty decent weapon refine. For her budget build, you could run her with the first build for Arena Assault with Triangle Adept and Lance Breaker. So this allows you to check blue units basically and also be a buff bot to enable other allies on your team, and also enable stuff like Blade Tomes, which can really be powerful for taking down these +10 monsters in Arena Assault. And I have run the calcs. She can take out these +10 Lance units like Brave Hector, Legendary Dimitri, and Duo Ephraim. The fact that such low merged and low invested Fae could do this, it's really nice for Arena Assault purpose. Just make sure that the +10 Hector you face does not have a +6 speed boost, otherwise it is going to be taking you 2 combats to kill him. And if the Duo Ephraim has more speed than Fae, then he's just going to be breaking through the Lance Breaker and just going to be doubling her to kill her out. So just need to keep that in mind, but still this is pretty nice for a budget build for Arena Assault. Another build which you could do for budget is basically run Sturdy Stance and have Crooked Post and just be a melee tank. The third build is going to be a standard one with Crooked Post and Distant Counter. Distant Counter is by far the best slot A skill for Fae. You should definitely have that, especially if you want to invest heavily into her, because she can make use of her resistance and retaliate back to the ranged units and just mess them up even. And now we talk about IVs, so I feel like on low merges like the first and the second build, plus attack IV is definitely going to be doing pretty nice for you. And stuff like Glimmer or Luna could be nice as your budget special basically. But when it comes to heavy investment and max investment, I would say that speed is probably going to be the preferred IV for me. The reason being is that speed can be really helpful for preventing doubles. And all the buffs which I'm showing in her builds are from her own weapon, which is +5 to all of her stats. So I feel like Speed IV definitely opens up a lot of versatility and allows her to be more bulky because she's not going to get doubled that much. And she can definitely double without any kind of Crooked Post, Sacred Seal even, if you do stack up enough speed stacking skill like Lull Attack Speed, Joint Drive Speed, and even the new Kestrel Stance Sacred Seal. So that could be done. And again, Noontime could be used because Eternal Breath does have that special acceleration, so Noontime is going to be going off on the retaliation. You could also run Glacies with Special Spiral. So this is a very powerful one because she could retaliate back with Glacies once Special Spiral is charged up. And Dragon's Ire is a better quick riposte basically that allows you to get past stuff like impact skills, which can be really annoying. So if you do have Halloween Grima, then Plus and Fae would definitely appreciate that. And if you already have a plus attack IV, then Dragon's Ire is also a pretty nice option. You could definitely run quick riposte on most of these builds with Distant Counter, honestly. These are just some alternate slot B options which you could run with the other skills. Now for Arena, Fae is actually really amazing because she can buff up all of your allies so easily, but the problem is that she is a Gen 1 unit, so she doesn't really score that much, and she would need Green Dual Infantry in slot A to have her max score. However, if you're just someone who, stays in tier 18, 18.5 or 19.5, then you don't really care that much. You could run Distant Counter and just enjoy the work that Fae does because she's still going to be having 748 arena score. You don't really need Joint Drive Attack as a 300 SP slot C skill for the max scoring, but it's just a very good skill for Fae in general. These Joint Drive skills are really good with her. So she's going to be able to easily destroy stuff like Legendary Crom and a lot of the blue units in Arena in your core. And a lot of people already have a plus in Fae from back in the day in their Arena core. So if you don't really take Arena that seriously, then I feel like there's no harm in using this kind of Fae with her new weapon refine. And now we have the non-distant counter builds at the end. I personally don't really prefer not having distant counter on her because like I said, her bulk is really fantastic to face the ranged units. But of course, bonus doubler is going to be a no-brainer with a self-buffing weapon like her. So that could be done. And she can definitely be pretty fast with bonus doubler and lull attack speed and kestrel stance. You could also run a melee specialist build with a tier 4 stance skill like bracing stance and have a lull skill in slot B and quick riposte. She can also be used in Aether Raid's offense, but strictly in the light season because in the Astra season we have the big bad Thracier who's gonna make Fae have a really bad time. But even in light season, she will have to watch out for the dragon effective weapons, especially Cloud Mayogi, which a lot of dagger units carry. So in Aether Raid's offense in the light season, she could run Null Counter Disrupt if you did fodder off a Nyla to her, so that could be done. And she can actually function as a chill or shrine soaker along with being a buff bot, so that kind of support role can be done. And because she does have high HP, you could utilize something like even Pulse Tai in her slot B. Now she's definitely not one of the best support units, but still it is something. If you do have a plus in Fae, she could be used for that purpose. It's just an option really. And Null Follow-Up could also be used with her, and as I said, plus speed IV definitely opens up a lot of possibilities, and here is one of them because Null Follow-Up is definitely pretty important for taking on Bramimons and Yune. So Null Follow-Up is going to be a very big necessity if you want to use her in light season. And for example, you could just use her with Mila and Air. Mila and Air can both soak Dark and Bright Shrine respectively. And Fae has such high HP with a triple mythic setup that she's not really going to be affected by any kind of max level panic manner. So she can safely buff herself up essentially and not really get panicked because panic smoke isn't really all that common because Thracier is not in the light season, but still in the higher tiers you will face some of the panic smoke units, and Eliwood with that Blazing Durandal weapon refine is going to be super annoying, but still just an example of how you could use Fae in a triple mythic setup, as two of the mythics can soak the chills and then Peony can provide the extra buffs, and Fae just buffs herself up with the visible stats as it is, and Noontime works really well with Eternal Breath. Valter did have Cursed Lance, which at the time was a pretty decent weapon, but as time went on, he had more and more competition, so this solid weapon refine definitely does a lot of favors for him. So the primary condition of this weapon is now Fury 3, and the sling effect of this weapon is really good for Gale Force, it always was. And his weapon refine is pretty flexible and it has got two conditions to activate it. So if Valter is not at full HP, then it does activate, or if the enemy has got a penalty active on them, then it still activates and gives +5 to his attack speed and defense, and he also inflicts guard status on the enemy, so the enemy cannot really charge up their specials that easily. And this is really amazing because having two conditions to activate this effect means that even on his first combat when he's going to be at full HP, you can actually activate this effect by having some team support like Temari, Sabotage, or Chill debuff on the foe, and just activate this weapon refine even on his first combat Then after that, he does have synergy with Cursed Lance Fury built into it, so he will be not at full HP, and then this weapon will always be active. So pretty nice weapon refine, which does make him a better player phase unit. For budget builds, you can use Fury Desperation. Double Fury is definitely going to be wearing him down really fast, but for the budget options, we don't really have too many options here. We still haven't got a 4-star unit who has got Sparrow 2. So that's a bit annoying. So you could run Brazen Attack Speed actually, and just after one combat he does fall into Desperation as well as in the Brazen Attack Speed range at +1 merge. And you could also use him with budget Gale Force. He's not going to be all that fast, so you will need to support him with some team support with buffs and stuff so that he can trigger Gale Force at low merges. And if you want to have a plus and merge Valter, then Rain Scale, Attack Speed Rain in particular, is going to be a fantastic option for his slot C. And Fury 4 could be used as a premium skill. You could also use Swift Sparrow 3 actually, and instead of running a Rain Scale, you could run Odd Tempest if you do have extra Legendary Dimitri. But I feel like Slot C is pretty competitive when it comes to Rain Scales, and Rain Scales are always going to be active, unlike Odd Tempest, which is only going to be active on the odd turns. But if you want to have a 3 movement Valter with having Gale Force, then that could be done. You could also run Heavy Blade 4 and slot it after he has hunted down Dua Ephraim, and that allows him to have some nice true damage. And you could also run him with Fury and Escape Route. So basically, Escape Route is going to be a pretty nice budget option for Slot B, which allows him to just run out of any kind of situation after he has Gale Forced. So it makes for a pretty nice hit and run setup. Speed Defense Rain is also going to be nice, but overall I feel like Attack Speed Rain is better because it does help him with his Heavy Blade triggers. Valter can also be used in a Valter Force type of team, which is basically a bootleg version of Air Force. So for those of you who do not know, Air Force is a type of Gale Force team archetype where Air runs Disarm Trap and Fury 3, and with the self-recall of Lifiaberg and Fury, she falls into the Wings of Mercy range within 2 rounds of combat because of her low HP stat, and that allows allies with Wings of Mercy to just swoop in and Gale Force and finish off the opponent's team. So that could be done with Valter as well, but on much worse scale honestly, because Valter is a melee range unit and he doesn't have Disarm Trap, and he can only work if he's unmerged. Because he has too much HP for this kind of strat. So you need to have Fury 4 of course as a premium skill, and he basically takes 14 damage per round from Fury 7 essentially, and after 2 rounds of combat he's exactly going to be falling into the Wings of Mercy range. And you could have someone like Navarre, who's basically the best free to play Gale Forcina, to just swoop in and Gale Force, and Peony can also swoop in with Wings of Mercy. And this can of course be run with Temari Air, who can activate his weapon refine on the first combat. Original Micaiah was the first unit with dual effectiveness, and here Thani gets a weapon refine. So the primary condition has got improved, and now it reduces damage from all range units despite their movement in both phases from their first attack during the combat. Previously, she could only reduce this from armored range units and cavalry range units, but now this is much more universal. But still keep in mind, this is only going to be reducing damage from their first attack, and Micaiah is very slow, so if she gets doubled, then she's likely going to die because the damage reduction is not going to be there for the second attack. The weapon refine basically needs one condition to be active, which is for Micaiah to be above half health. And if that is possible, then she's able to get an auto follow-up attack in both phases, along with having +5 attack and +5 resistance. So this was always a big issue of Micaiah, that she couldn't really double easily, and now she has got this auto follow-up, which is really nice. Though I feel like this threshold condition could have been based on the foe's HP, kind of like Divine Tearfang. If the foe is above half health, that would have been much more convenient for Micaiah in my personal opinion. So this weapon refine is still pretty decent, but it could have been much better if they handled the refine part a bit better in my opinion. But still does make Micaiah much more viable now. And the extra attack is really amazing for the effective damage for one-shotting armors and cavalry units, and the extra resistance can make her into a better mage tank, as you'll see later on in the builds. So basically the damage reduction can help her get into the Vantage and Desperation range in a sense, and not really fall out of the 50% HP threshold hopefully. So Micaiah is definitely a pretty powerful unit with this auto follow-up attack and having extra attack and resistance, and the better damage reduction is just much more appreciated for making her so much more viable now. For her budget build, you could just run double death blow, and basically this is to use in Arena Assault for slaying armor units. And you could also use Heavy Blade with Glimmer to trigger that when you're in the Desperation range. So the damage reduction can help her get into the Desperation range but not go outside of the Thani range, essentially the Refined range, which is half health. So that could be done, and Desperation is really nice because she gets an auto follow-up attack. So that can be really helpful because I know many times people used to run this Braspiration set basically on Micaiah, but that is no longer needed. She can just run Desperation on slot B and be free with that. And you could also run Death Blow 4 basically on a highly invested Micaiah, giving you more chances of just one-shotting things with her high attack stat. And she can actually be such a powerful unit in Abyssal content and in the in-game maps basically because of this auto follow-up. She's a fantastic blue mage now. So you could run Sturdy Impact, which does help her with her piss poor defense essentially, and does improve her matchups against distant counter units as well as bow and dagger units that she might face in the in-game content. So Sturdy Impact, I really like it a lot, and I kind of prefer it more than Mirror Impact. And Mystic Boost does provide her constant healing so that she can be above the half health range of her Refined condition. And Iceberg with Heavy Blade is a fantastic way of nuking things, especially on the Abyssal maps. So that is going to be extremely powerful special. And if you want to run Mirror Impact, then you could also do that. But like I said, she does have pretty low defense and Mirror Impact really doesn't do much for her. She already has really high resistance, so that could be done. And you could run Mystic Boost, or you could also go with Lull Attack Resistance. And now we move on to Ether Raids. So in Ether Raids, she has got a bunch of options that she could do as a mage tank or as a range tank. And Micaiah is really potent in dealing with cavalry units and an archetype of defense called Cav Line. So against a bunch of cavalry units, she can definitely be a pretty potent unit with Null Counter Disrupt, and Mirror Stance 3 or any kind of tier 3 stance skill is going to be really good for her because it can stop the special charges of the enemies like Reinhardt and stuff like that. So that could be pretty deadly, but a tier 3 stance skill is going to be absolutely amazing for a slow unit like her who can always get doubled. And Null Counter Disrupt allows you to take care of those annoying Dazzling Staff units which are always on the cav lines. But just be sure to watch out for Wrath and Pythons because they are Green Bow Cavaliers and they can hit really hard. And it could be hard for Micaiah to take out like plus 10 highly invested Wrath and Python. So those are the two units which you have to watch out for and not just throw out your Micaiah against them just because they are cavalry units. Gotta respect them a bit. You can run a Special Spiral double resistance defense build. So this is a purely enemy phase build, and this allows you to just retaliate back with Iceberg once Special Spiral is charged up. And because of double resistance defense, she just has such high resistance that she's barely going to be taking any kind of damage. So she doesn't really need any kind of healing here, and we can focus with her high resistance into going with the damage output with Iceberg. So that could be done. And Attack Rest Solo with Vantage could also be used. So the damage reduction from Thani Tome could help her not be outside of the 50% threshold, but enter in the Vantage range at the very least. And double solos can definitely give her pretty high attack stat. You could also run her with Close Counter. She can be a really nice unit to deal with those annoying Blazing Durandal Ellywoods. She does have the Weapon Strangle advantage as well as the effective damage. So I did used to use Close Counter Vantage Micaiah a lot back in the day, and I still do from time to time, and now I'm going to be using her even more with this Weapon Refine. And you could also use her in Ether Raid's defense as an Iceberg nuke or Glaci's nuke. Now again, Sturdy Impact in my opinion is better because it does help her with her defense, which is so low. But if you want to have a bigger nuke with plus 10 resistance and the Mirror Impact, then that's also an option. And she can be a pretty threatening unit with an impact skill and also an auto follow-up which she has got in her weapon. The gates are open for Gen 1 healers to get their weapon refines, and Elise is the first one to get it. So she gets a fantastic weapon refine. The primary condition does give her plus 3 speed, and she still has the gravity effect just like her vanilla gravity staff. And this weapon's primary effect does have Wrathful Staff built into it. So if you inherited Wrathful Staff to her slot B, it's unfortunately completely useless, and she needs to inherit Dazzling Staff for her slot B. So that is pretty annoying how some people got punished for having Wrathful Staff inherited to her. because now it's just part of her weapon, and double Wrathful does absolutely nothing. Anyways, the weapon refine is really amazing in player phase because not only it gives her Spectrum -4 debuff on the foe, and that does help Elise in the combat as well, but it could also help her allies if the enemy is within 2 spaces of Elise, so that can just give them the Spectrum debuff on the foe, and that can be a pretty powerful effect. So effectively, she gets +7 speed from this weapon and the weapon refine, which is of course really amazing for a general healer. And this definitely improves her combat potential and also helps her support allies. So this is a really nice weapon refine and I'm really happy with it. It's just the fact that Wrathful Staff is gonna be useless on her slot B if you did have it before. For her budget build, we don't really have too many options because you would have to inherit Dazzling Staff, and Elise's HP and defense are so low that she will easily go down to any of the hits. So this is a very budget set with live to serve and attack res push, so it's not to attack into distant counter units, it's just to move her around and provide the support, maybe with Goat Cavalry and her weapon Spectrum debuff. But if you do have Dazzling Staff fodder available, then of course that should easily and quickly go into her slot B because she definitely needs that. Attack speed push 4 is by far the best slot A skill that you could run on her. And if you do use Elise at high investment, then I would highly recommend having Rescue Staff from Flame, because what this does is that it has drawback essentially. So with the gravity effect, you can kite a lot of units, kind of like what you could do with Brave Camilla, but you couldn't really use an assist skill with Brave Camilla to run away with your Dancer, but here you could do that with Elise. So that is going to be pretty potent if you can afford to fodder a Flame to Elise, and that is definitely going to be something that she appreciates at high investments. So in my opinion, this was a pretty nice batch of weapon refines. None of these weapon refines were underwhelming, and none of these are like too broken or must to have. These are just pretty nice weapon refines which help these units' viability a lot. And stuff like Fae and Micaiah could be used for Arena Assault, especially Fae as a nice cheap buff bot is going to be nice for Arena Assault, and of course for slaying armors, Micaiah is going to be the one. So let me know in the comments which weapon refine was your favorite out of this batch, and are you going to be refining any of these units? I want to thank all of my YouTube members for their constant support. If you enjoyed, then please be sure to leave a like and a comment, helps me tremendously, and be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because YouTube sub boxes are about as functional as male and female Robin after seeing Fae's weapon. So that's it, I'll see you guys next time, thank you so much for watching and have a great day.